In Lesson 05, Examples 2 and 3, you'll be learning how to multiply fractions. The first step in multiplying fractions is to change any mixed numbers to improper fractions before you begin. Step 2 makes life a lot easier in the end if you do this. If you look to see if you can simplify it before multiplying, meaning you want to look for a numerator and denominator that both can be divided by the same number, and you do that before you continue on. You don't have to do that step, but it makes it easier in the end. Number 3, multiply the numerators. Put that answer you get on the top. Step 4, multiply the denominators and put that answer on the bottom. And last step, you should always simplify. Look to see if there's a number you can divide both the numerator and denominator by, or if it's an improper fraction, write it as a mixed number. Our first example, 2/5 times 1/3. I don't have any improper fractions, so I can go ahead and move on to step 2. If I look at my numerators and denominators, I do not have any that I can simplify before multiplying, so we're on to step 3. Multiply the numerators. 2 times 1 is 2. 5 times 3, this is step 4. 5 times 3 is 15. Now our last step is to look to see if this can be simplified. There is not a number that goes into 2 and 15 evenly, and it's not an improper fraction, so you are finished. Next example, 3/5 times 1 1/2. Step 1 is to change mixed numbers to improper fractions. So right here we have a mixed number. We're going to change this to an improper fraction. You do that by multiplying the whole number by the denominator, and then you add the top number. And what you get when you multiply and then add, that goes on the top, and then you always keep the bottom the same. One way I like to remember it is times and then plus, keep the same denominator. So times plus, keep the same denominator. 1 times 2 is 2, plus the 1 extra is 3, keep the denominator the same. So this problem is really 3/5 times 3/2. Now I'm going to look to see if there's anything I can simplify ahead of time by looking diagonally or up and down. I do not have any numerators and denominators that can be divided by the same thing, so I'm going to go ahead and multiply across for step 3. Multiply across the bottom for step 4. 5 times 2 is 10. And then last step, there is nothing to simplify in this one, so we will just stop right there. Next example, I don't have any improper fractions, so I can move on to step 2. This is one where I can simplify it before I multiply, because right here with the 2 and the 4, they both can be divided by 2. So 2 divided by 2, I'm going to replace that with a 1, and 4 divided by 2, I'm going to replace that with a 2. Now we can go on and multiply the numerators. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 9 is 18. That is in simplest form, so we are done. One more example. First step, change any mixed numbers to improper fractions. We don't have any in here, so we'll move on to the second step. There is not anything that I can simplify before multiplying, so moving on to step 3. Numerators, multiply them together. Now, by the way, right here with this -3/4, sometimes it's written with the negative on the top. Sometimes it's written with the negative on the bottom. And sometimes it's written with a negative in the middle, like it is in this case. All three of these mean the same thing, either with a negative on the numerator or the denominator or in the middle. As long as you only have one negative, that means it's a negative fraction, because the fraction bar really is like dividing. And as long as you have one of each sign when you divide, it's always going to be negative. If I were to go add a negative sign down here, then this really would be a positive fraction, because a negative divided by a negative is positive. So rather than worry about where this negative is, I know this first fraction is negative and the second one is positive. A negative times a positive is always going to be a negative. Remember that saying from earlier? Bad things happening to good people is bad. Or you can use the tic-tac-toe method that I showed you. Now, as I said, there wasn't anything that I could simplify ahead of time, so now we're going to multiply across the top. 3 times 3 is 9, and 4 times 8 is 32. Now you're going to go ahead and see if there's anything you can simplify. There is not a number that goes both into 9 and 32, so we are finished.